Most people don't believe that something as trivial as ballot design or even the length of a ballot could change the outcome of an election, but this misunderstanding is a dangerous one. In this video, we'll dive into the psychology behind ballot design, and I'll reveal how long ballots are not only poisoning Canada's democratic system, but it may have exposed a democratic problem that has subtly been influencing our elections for decades without our knowledge. Ask the average person whether ballot design affects how people vote, and most people will shrug, no, not really. But if you ask a behavioral scientist who specializes in design psychology, then you will get a radically different answer. Those of us who work at the intersection of psychology and design know that the way information is structured and presented to people has a huge impact on how they perceive it, how they respond emotionally, and how they ultimately take action on it. Ballot design is no exception. In fact, it's been studied for over a century, drawing on data from thousands of elections around the world. The evidence is clear. The design, the order, and the length of a ballot can strongly influence the outcome of an election. This is why there are so many election rules that exist to prevent evil designers from manipulating elections. Why is this suddenly relevant in Canada? Because a group called the Longest Ballot Committee has introduced a tactic called candidate stuffing. They flood elections with so many fake candidates that the ballots become absurdly long, over a meter long in some cases, and it sparked moral outrage. People feel a deep sense of injustice, even if they can't quite explain why. As this drama unfolded, I started to freak out. Canada's state-funded media, whose job it is to inform the public, did the opposite. Instead of explaining the science, they downplayed the issue, spread misleading narratives, and presented made-up facts, claiming that long ballots are not harmful. Worse, they excluded any genuine viewpoint diversity. Not a single behavioral scientist was consulted, despite a mountain of research available and no shortage of experts. That's when my patriotic instincts kicked in. I spent a month analyzing the data from 3 of Canada's long ballot elections. What I found was horrifying. Strong, consistent patterns of position bias. But what I uncovered was also counterintuitive, and it may have exposed a democratic problem that has subtly been influencing our elections for decades without our knowledge. I'm now publishing this report, and in this video, I'll walk you through the main parts related to design psychology. Now that we've covered the background, here's what you can expect in this 4-part video series. First, in the rest of this video, I'll quickly walk you through the scandal of Canada's fake candidate, long ballots. In the second video, we'll look at the psychology of voting and how seemingly minor design choices can cause people to spoil their votes or even select the wrong candidate. In the third video, we'll dig into the lethal combination of long ballots with alphabetical ranking. I'll share bias models from my recent report on 3 Canadian long ballot elections and explain why this is such a serious problem. And finally, we'll close the series by taking a look at what I believe was utter misrepresentation by the CBC and how they underplayed the risks of long ballots. Then we'll set the record straight. In this section, we'll go through the history of how activists have been creating artificially long ballots and why their tactic has triggered such a widespread moral outrage. The organization that has been driving these long ballots is called the Longest Ballot Committee, and they're an organization that does candidate stuffing where they get as many people to run in an election who are fake candidates. And then this creates very long ballots that cause all sorts of problems with voters, with the complexity of the ballot, and then the administration of the election. This turns an election into a fight, and there's nothing the media loves more. So what the media does is they give the activists a political platform to say whatever they like. To put their actions into perspective, let's look at the public opinion polls over time and then compare when the candidate stuffing actions happened. So if we look in this chart from 338 Canada, the red here represents a favorable position towards the Liberal Party of Canada, while the blue here represents favorable views towards the Conservatives. So the first time that the candidate stuffing tactic was implemented by the Longest Ballot Committee was in 2021, and it was just after the political parties had reached parity in the public opinion polls. And soon after, things were bouncing around, and we had an inversion that happened shortly after, right? So there wasn't much during their time of sort of parity bouncing around here in the middle. And then what happens is as the Conservatives start gaining the lead, candidate stuffing became more common. So here we have, again, 40. Then we have 48, and we have a big stream of them. So as the Conservatives are getting a bigger lead, there's a smaller candidate stuffing initiative with 18, then 84, 91. It wasn't until the Carleton election that people started to take this seriously. And it's because the leader of the Conservative Party had an unfortunate political outcome from that election. And at that point, people started to really suspect that, maybe there's something more to these long ballots than what we thought. That's a quick introduction to the series with some background on Canada's long ballot scandal. In the next video, we're going to dive into the psychology behind how voters make decisions and how small design choices can accidentally change election outcomes or at least harm the voting process. I'll give you a better sense of how minor details can have major consequences and also how we typically fix these problems. If you found this video helpful, I'm grateful if you can give it a thumbs up and subscribe to stay notified of my next video. You'll find a link to the next video in the discussion below, and I'll see you there.